Okay, people, I don't often go in depth on God, but I'm going to, because you constantly hear people say, pray God does this, pray God does that, pray God does this. Now, there are things God will step in and help on. He will help a dying patient to become better. There are things. But to pray to God for everything, God doesn't do everything. God gave you a mind. God gave you a heart. God speaks to you. If you choose to listen. You know that little voice that when you're going to play a prank, that little twinge of conscience you get that says, should I be doing this? That little twinge of conscience, that's God giving you a complete sentence in just a little flash. And if your answer is, but this will be so funny, God lets you do it because you have free choice. Now, if you're going to go out there and do something really bad, like kill somebody or do some real bad harm to somebody, and you get that deep twinge, that's God giving you a whole book. And when you ignore it, and you do it anyways, and then you'll hear people say that the first time you kill something, something inside of you changes. You know what changes? God just turned his back. And he will not turn back and face you until you stop what you're doing and you ask him to forgive you. And if your wrong is so bad, you'll turn your back on yourself. And until you turn back to yourself, to the person God knows you can be, he will keep his back turned to you. As far as God fixing the hate in this world, God can't do that. And for those who choose to hate somebody because they're gay or they're not Christian or they're a different color of skin or come from a different country, until you choose not to hate, God can't do anything with your heart because you have chosen to not listen to him. And he can't do anything with that. You have to do it. You have to choose to get rid of that hate. Because God created everything on this earth. So it is your choice to stop the hate. It is not his work to stop the hate. And if you claim to be a Christian, you show in your actions that you're a Christian. Which means you remove that hate. Because whether somebody is gay or straight or black or white or Oriental or Native American, Muslim or Christian or Jewish, God created each and every one of them. And as a Christian, by God's word, you are mandated to love them, even if they don't believe in any religion at all. Because God has mandated you do not judge them. For he created them. You judge their actions. If they are hurtful and harmful to others, that's what you judge. And you tell them, what you're doing is hurting others. Why do you choose to do that? If they choose to keep hurting, you can choose to walk away and leave them alone. But you can't choose to hurt them, because that makes you no better than them. Are you just as bad as the person who is doing the hurt? Or are you better than that person? Now, if you see somebody out there hurting somebody else, that doesn't mean you can hurt them unless you're doing it to get that other person, the innocent victim, away. Then you do no more than to allow that person to get free and get protection from you. But you don't go in there and harm them in a way that it's going to be worse than you really can imagine. Because that's not your place. When you walk up and you tell a gay person they don't have a right to live, even though God created them. And God created them the way they are. When you tell them they don't have a right to live, and they don't have the right to be who they are, and they don't have a right to love, what you are doing is you're rejecting God. You're telling him he does not have the right to create whatever being he chooses to create on this earth. And what you see in humanity, you will also see in nature all over the place. You see a human born with both male and female sex organs. Do you know there are other creatures out there that are born that way? You see somebody who's a transgender, who can change from male to female. Well, my goodness, God created creatures that can do that. The clownfish, for one. So what you are judging is God's creation. Nothing more, nothing less. And if that's your choice to do, then what you are asking God to do is to turn his back on you. Because if you cannot accept what he creates or who he creates, then you cannot accept God. You are not a real true Christian. You are somebody who goes out and says you're a Christian and expects that to excuse every action you take. It doesn't. And as far as those of you out there who harm children, especially those who are leaders of churches, God turns his back on you for life. For when a child cries, when a child is in pain, that's when God steps in. Those are his children, and you are to leave them be. You are to guide them in life. You are not to take their innocence, because once you take their innocence, you can never give it back. Once you hurt them, you can never unhurt them. And it will be carried with them throughout their life. How do I know this? Because an adult male, in fact several of them, did it to me as a child. And so I never got my innocent childhood. And I will never have it back. And the pain they created in me has lasted me to this day. And they can never unhurt me. So remember, when you're out there asking God to fix everything for you, it's not going to happen. You need to use what God gave you. It is here and it is here. To work on fixing things yourself. The old saying is true. God never gives you any more than what you can handle. The choice is whether you use the mind He gave you to reason through it and the heart He gave you to have compassion in it. And that is your choice. If you cannot do that, then it is your choice to allow God to turn His back and wait for you to catch up to what He's trying to teach you. Now, as far as Black Lives Matters go, yes, all lives matter. But if there's one life out there, whether it be Black or Native American or Latino or any other group or Asian or any other group that are being treated lesser than one group, which in this case would be the white group, then you're doing wrong. And so those lives at that moment matter more than that white person's life. Because the white person has not taken the time to care for that other person. It's no different than whether or not you're standing and trying to decide to save the arsonist from the fire or save the arsonist's victim from the fire. Or do you try to save the murderer from himself? Or do you try to save the victim from the murderer? Do you try to save the rape victim? Or do you try to save the rapist? If you try to save the rapist, you allow the rapist to rape his victim. I am not going to try and save the white man. I am going to try and save his victims. And no, I am not white. I consider myself the invisible race. Because I suffer from racism from every one of my ancestors' descendants. I'm not white. I'm not considered Black. And I'm not considered Native American. Yet, all of my ancestors were these. So as the invisible race, I don't choose who I save by the color of their skin. I choose who I save by who is victimized more. And Native Americans and Blacks are victimized more by whites. And Asians are victimized more by whites. And Latinos are victimized more by whites. And yes, it's just as wrong when a Black man victimizes a white man, or when a Black man victimizes a Latino man, or when a Native American man victimizes a Black man or a Latino man. It shouldn't happen. Because when you practice racism, you're hurting everybody. You're hurting your own people. You're not just hurting somebody of that race. I have been hurt by all my own people. I've been rejected by all my own people. I've been cast aside by all my own people. I am the invisible race. But I'm still out here fighting for what is right, knowing full well I will never be anything more than the invisible race. To all of you. But I'm hoping someday race won't matter. And that we all just accept each other. Because God accepts us all. Are you going to be lesser than what God created you to be?